My name is William, and I was working for a particular scenario, a specific requirement, which is a little, I would say, outside the box requirement, where the customer wanted one forest domain controller's information to be synced in two different tenants. Now, the good part is that particular domain controller had two domains, and they want each domain to sync to their individual tenant. Now, the scenario is like this. What customer has is a domain controller with two domain and an exchange server. We'll talk about the exchange server a little later, but this is again another requirement that the customer has. Now, both the domain needs to be synced to two different Office 365 tenant, which is tenant 1 and tenant 2. Now, domain 1 needs to sync with tenant 1 and domain 2 needs to sync with tenant 2. But they don't want to break the domain controller. They want to keep it as one forest. Now, the solution that I came up with is what we can do. We can try and add two different member servers or domain join servers and install AD Connect on both the server. But the trick is when I configure this particular AD Connect, I will only filter users who belong to domain 1. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to only filter in a way that only domain 2 users syncs from this AD Connect. And then this AD Connect will be integrated with tenant 1 and this AD Connect will be integrated with tenant 2. In this way, we're not breaking the present domain controller and we are simultaneously syncing two different tenant with two different domains inside it, users of two different domains inside it. Customer also has a requirement where they want to migrate this exchange server's mailboxes to each tenant, but we'll try and upload the video for this on the second time, sometime later. So this is a requirement. Now what I'm going to do is I actually have a domain controller as a proof of concept, a test domain controller with two different domains. Now how I did it is domain 1 is my primary forest name and my domain, the primary domain, and domain 2 is added as a domain UPN suffix. However, this actually can also work with a scenario where you have one forest with domain 1 in DC1 and an additional domain on a second domain controller. But since I have a very limited core on my processor, I just did it this way, but it applies on both. So I already have a domain controller. I have two different member servers, ADCon1, ADCon2, and we'll try and see how exactly it syncs. Now we're going to move on to my lab. I'm going to show you how exactly the lab is set up. Now this is where I have set up my lab. You can see that I have one exchange server. I also have one domain controller with two different domains and the user. I have two different member servers, ADCon1 and ADCon2. So this is how the setup is. I'll also show you how I set up the users. So let's go to my domain controller. Exactly it works. So I'm going to log into my domain controller now. And as you can see in this particular domain controller, test1.xyz is my primary forest name. And I have two different OUs here, test1 and test2. Now you can do it any way you want, but I just wanted to streamline the setup make it much more clean. So what I did is I created two different OUs, test one and test two, helps me filter. And each particular OU has their users. So test one has user one and user two. And if you see user two or user one, if you double click and open it, you can see this user two belongs to test one.xyz. Similarly, user one also belongs to test one.xyz. And if you go to test 2 OU, I have user 3 and user 4. User 3 or user 4 will belongs to test 2.xyz. So I have both the domain users in two different OUs. It helps me streamline, make it clean, also helps me on the AD Connect filter side. There are other way administrative units and security groups which you can also use for filter, but this is something that helps me make it much more streamlined. Now let's go to my ADCon1 or my first AD Connect server. I'll close this out. Don't need this one at the moment. I also don't need this at the moment. So I'll go to my ADCon1. So this is where I'm going to install my AD Connect and configure it in a way that it'll only sync my test1.xyz users. So first we'll download it. So I have my AD Connect downloaded. Let's install it and let's configure it. So we will install the AD Connect here and go through the configuration. Now, just to let you know, AD Connect V2 is in and it's far more intuitive. They've enhanced it. That's a good thing. Now, we are not going to use the express setting because we need to do some customization on the filter side. So I'm going to choose customize. I don't need a custom installation. That's not why I'm choosing the customize. I might skip this part. All right, we are on the second screen. I'll keep it password hash synchronization because we are not focused on any other sign methods. And in this scenario, you cannot use ADFS or pass through because we are using two different tenants and that's not supportable. So when you are giving this idea to somebody, to consider the scenarios where certain things that are not supported. Number one, hybrid is not supported. Number two, ADFS or pass through is not supported or any other method. We have to use a password hash synchronization in this scenario. So I'm going to keep it as password hash, and then I'm going to sign in using my global account, global admin account. So this is a tenant where I have already verified test1.xyz as a domain. So this is where I'm going to sync all my test1 users. So again, reiterating, adcon1 is specifically synchronizing test1.xyz users to tenant number 1, which is while.live. So now I have my uh, global admin signed in, and as you can see, it has already picked up my forest name, which is test1.xyz. I'm going to add the directory here. It's asking me for an enterprise admin. So I'll do this. I'll sign in using my on-premise enterprise admin credential. It takes a little bit of time for it to add, but now as you can see, it has added it. We'll move on to next step. Now, as you can see, it has already checked and found out that test1 is a verified domain in my Office 365, which is a good thing. So we don't have to do anything specific. Just simply click on continue with matching all UPN suffixes. The magic comes on the next page. So this is where by default is synchronizing the entire forest, which we don't want. We want to only synchronize test1 users. So I hope now it makes sense why I created two different OUs. But again, there are other ways of filtering it in case if this is something that you can't do in your scenario. But for me, I'm using test1 OU, and I'm only and only synchronizing test1 OU, which has test1.xyz users. And then I'm going to click on next. Nothing to do here. Next. And this is another way of synchronizing. You can select a specific DN or a group using which you can filter it. But I'm not going to use that because I've already filtered it. I'm going to click on next. I'm not going to do anything specific here. I'll keep it default because in my scenario, I'm not using hybrid. Neither I have public folder. I don't want to do password write back or any other customization here. So I'm going to keep it default, and then I'm going to click on next. And finally, it'll start configuring it. So this way, what I've done is in Acon1, I've only synchronized test1.xyz as a user. I can also use staging mode in case if you don't want to synchronize right away, you can keep the AD connect on staging mode. But since I'm just doing it on the lab, it's just a proof of concept. So I'm not worried about it. But when you go to production, you might have to consider these options and be careful about synchronizing because since this is out of the box scenario, a lot of consideration needs to be kept in mind. I'm going to click on install and it'll start configuring or synchronizing my test1.xyz users to my tenant 1. Alright, so the configuration is completed. I can click on exit. So this adcon1 is now synchronizing the domain 1, which is my test1.xyz to my tenant number 1. Now let's have a look on our tenant number 1. So this is my tenant number 1, and if I go to my user, I should see test 1 and test 2, synchronize to cloud. So user 1 and user 2 are now synced to my tenant number 1. As you can see, both are visible here. Now that's the first step of success. Now, what we need to do is we need to install AD Connect again on my tenant number 2, my ADCon 2, and synchronize my other two domains, the other domain here. So let's have a look. This is my tenant number 2, which is williampoc.microsoft.com. As you can see, test2.xyz is a verified domain here. So that part is done. We will go to my ADCon 2, which is this server. And sign in using the same credential for my enterprise admin. So this is my tenant number 2. And again, I'm going to download my AD Connect. So I have my AD Connect downloaded. So we'll start the wizard. Same concept, same steps. Only I'm going to change the OU to test 2 so that it only synchronizes test 2 to my other tenant. So this is my global admin. So we're going to follow the same step again. Again, customize. I'm not going to do any customization on the first page. I'll click on install. All right, we are on the next step. And as I said, I'm not going to keep any other method of authentication because in this scenario, none of those are recommended. Though we can do highly extensive customization to use them, but again, that's a different story. I'm going to keep it as password hash synchronization. Move on to next. I'll sign in using my tenant number 2's global admin. It has already picked up my forest name. It's going to be test 1 because my forest name is test 1. And AD Connect recognizes forest and not domains. But that is okay. I'm going to add the directory. So directly added. Next. Now, as you can see, is the other way around on this page. It says test one is not verified in my tenant, which is okay because it's verified on a tenant number one. But what it says is test two is verified, which is a good thing because here we are only gonna use synchronize test two users. I'll check this box, click on next. This is where again the magic happens. I'm gonna uncheck all the OUs and only select test 2 OU and click on next. Nothing to do here. Next. And again, this is another way of filtering if you don't want the OU level. Next again, nothing to do here because I'm not putting any other configuration. Next. And it is ready to configure. I'm going to click on install. All right. So we have configured the second tenant as well. I'm going to click on exit. So AD-con2 is synchronizing test2.xyz user to my second tenant. So let's have a look on our second tenant. Let's refresh this page. All right, so as you can see, user 3 and user 4, which belongs to test2.xyz, is synchronized to this tenant. So we did achieve how exactly we can synchronize one forest with two different domains to two different Office 365 tenants. So tenant number 1 is synchronizing test1.xyz, and tenant number 2 is synchronizing user 3 and user 4, which belongs to test2.xyz. And I do have a topology designed on it. All right, so this is a topology that I designed on this particular picture. Uh, this is actually the total topology, but again, just focus on this part. So you can see one AD connect, one Active Directory forest, and using filters, I'm synchronizing it to three different server in this particular image. So all these three servers have their individual AD connect, and each AD connect is synchronizing a specific domain to a specific tenant. So this is how you can synchronize one forest to multiple tenants, and this is a proof of concept. So I thought I'll share with you all. Thank you so much for watching.